quote from one of our stakeholders and CEO, Pushkara. A sustainable choice should be a better, cheaper, and the obvious choice for everyone. Technology and transparency at a global scale can make this happen. And I thought I'd start with this because I think it links really well into both the problem and the solution that Earthical Innovations is trying to solve. So Earthical Innovations is trying to do this at a global corporate level because social responsibility is an increasingly integral part of business today, and focusing on these sustainable activities can affect a company's bottom line for several reasons. For example, global reporting standards, data collection and certification, cost implications of operations, or consultancy payoff. So Earthical Innovations aims to tackle this by being a one-stop shop to explore, execute, review, and report on all sustainable development goals. Okay? And it's going to prioritize building a win-win relationship between the sponsors and the actors on the field who are implementing these sustainable actions. Okay, so we'll go now for a demo. Okay, so here we have our, is that an aspect of it strange there? No? Okay. Alright, so here we've got the website's landing page. We've got a little title here with 5 buttons which are links to different sustainable activities that a sponsor may wish to browse. Okay, for our prototype we've focused solely on tree planting activities. So if I click here, we get taken to a collection page. I have a video if this doesn't work. 1 second. Okay, so we get taken to a collection page where a sponsor can browse all of the potential activities that they may wish to sponsor. We've got a little bit of information with a price and a view details button. We have a filter function on the left. We can filter by type, the location. Here we've got the different countries, SDG goals, so we've got all 17 goals here. Most of them will be life on land or something similar as that tree planting. And finally, we can sponsor by price with a minimum and maximum. Okay, so once a sponsor has chosen an activity they wish to sponsor, we can go to view details and get a little bit more information about it. We can select the number of units we want to purchase. Here we've got some pretty cheap trees in New York. They're 4 cents a tree, so I think we can get a few. So for example, we can get 5,000 trees for just $200. So let's put that in our cart, and we'll get taken to a checkout confirmation where we can modify the amount if we want. We can also add verification and reporting packages here, a little bit of information about them and their price, and then continue to payment. Okay, this is done with Stripe, and it will take us to an embedded form where we can put in details. This is done with a test account. Okay. And we can pay. Right, that will go through, and then we'll get a confirmation page with our order number, the quantity, and today's date. We also have a user profile page up here where we can view our sponsored activities, view reports, request a report, or sponsor another project, which will just take us to the activity page, or update our details. Some of these are still a work in progress, But for example, here we can go to update details where we'll get our sponsor details. These will be completed on sign up. On sign up, you'll be asked to enter these extra details and your record will be created in the database. Okay, so that's about it for the demo. So I'm going to pass you over to Juno now, who's going to talk about the tech stack.
Sweet. So the tech stack. Can you go to the next slide, Rob? Can you go to the slide?
Yeah, sorry.
Cool. So our tech stack is basically all through Amplify. So in the front end, we have a Vue and React app, which we created by following some steps that Amplify gave us. We're using Tailwind CSS for our styling, and we're using some components straight from Amplify's UI library. And then the back end, we're using all these AWS cloud services, which is, again, like all abstracted through Amplify. So we have Amazon Cognito, which helps us do like the authentication. We have Lambda functions. We're using DynamoDB for the database. And AppSync, which is like a GraphQL abstraction, which lets us also communicate with the database and use Lambda functions. And then we have, for our payment services, we have Stripe. And then learnings, we've learned a lot. What we learned to Amplify, that was a big challenge for a lot of us. We're using Amplify Gen 2, which is fairly new. So a lot of the Stack Overflow questions and answers and stuff are Amplify Gen 1, and ChatGPT also doesn't seem to know much about Gen 2. So one of the things we learned is that you really need to go deep into documentation and go over all of it 2 or 3 times if you can. That helps a lot. Another thing we learned is that it's good to commit and merge often in GitHub to make sure that everyone's on the same page. We spent a lot of time with setup. Definitely next time I think it's important to get everyone set up at the same time, ideally. It was a bit of a challenge for us because everyone's on different schedules, but we spent a lot of time kind of with the setup. And another thing that we learned was working with a sandbox, which is like a cloud sandbox, which is definitely a new concept for all of us, and a little bit challenging to understand in the beginning. Just how we're used to working locally with a backend, so working in the cloud definitely took some getting used to.
Yeah, so to follow on with the learnings, we found it interesting to mention that one of the core processes in the application was the checkout, which basically was allowing the sponsor to book one of the activities. And it was fairly complex because it used obviously the front end, the client, right, and also the back end with the Lambda functions, which connected to the Stripe account. And then basically with that we had to connect with a webhook back to our backend, right? Send information and send that to the database. So basically, one of the learnings for this type of parts of the application was to try to map everything with a sequence diagram, which has come up really handy for the whole process. And also, the other part was, for instance, when we use this service provider, right, with Stripe. Stripe, for instance, has a very long documentation, right? So it's it can be very time consuming. So the best way to that we thought that to go over that was reading through the documentation first, and then once you kind of get the idea of which functions are you gonna need, which parts of that time you're gonna use, then kind of double down and go more in depth into the specific explanation of that part, right? So that's it for the learnings. Then moving to the roadmap, so we have 3 weeks to basically do this application. So a lot of the initial things that we wanted to do, we had to prioritize, right? And so we ended up with a few things that we believe might make for a great addition to the project if we decide to go to market with it, right? So for instance, we wanted to add the ability to fully change the process as a pledge, right? To protect the activity, right? Not necessarily as a one-shot, but actually be part of a kind of a Kickstarter type of activity, right? Where once you set a certain goal, right, it actually happens. There also another stuff that we can add to the definition of the partner. We saw the sponsor trying to move the activity. We can also add the part where the partner actually logs in, creates activities, and so on. Also, given the mockup actually, well, the demo had other services, we didn't develop them fully, so this may be something that we could actually add to the project. And finally, things like a tool for reporting and sending reports to the sponsor could make for an interesting addition. So that's it. To close this, well, thank you everyone for listening to the presentation. If anyone has a question, we'll be happy to answer it as we know.